Hi, Moira, this is your brother. You're a psychopath. I'm not. I'm a legitimate college graduate, and you're not. I'm a lawyer, you're not. I passed the bar in 3 states, you didn't. I've got trial experience, you don't. I've been falsely defamed and falsely and wrongfully diagnosed as mentally ill in furtherance of a conspiracy to commit murder of Thomas Anthony Dorsey and as part of an Italian and Greek mafia racket to steal the part of the estate left behind by Thomas Anthony Dorsey after he was murdered. There's plenty of evidence of this, not the least of which is the fact that Mom's an arsenic poisoner, as evidenced by my short fingers. I was poisoned with arsenic in my youth to stunt my growth. Moira. So, the topic of this video, you con artist, Italian mafia associate, thief, murderer, Moira. The topic of this video is the events of May 5th, 2026, right here at 10 Fairview Street. Sometime in the afternoon of May 5th, 2026, on Fairview Street, the highly corrupt Newton police, some or all of whom work for the Italian mafia that operates out of the Nonantum section of Newton, Massachusetts, they arrived and they knocked on the back door here at 10 Fairview Street. They lured me outside on a pretext. They lured me outside of 10 Fairview Street. This is this dilapidated house that you and Mom have dumped me in as a result of extortion and fraud and murder. They lured me outside of 10 Fairview Street, away from the unsecured door of 10 Fairview Street. That is the front door of 10 Fairview Street. I secure the door whenever I leave because people are constantly breaking in when I am not present at 10 Fairview Street or when I'm sleeping. So I secure the door as best I can whenever I leave. The Newton police were here not for any legitimate law enforcement purpose. They were here to lure me away from the unsecured door of 10 Fairview Street. They were here on a pretext. The pretext was as follows: phone calls I had made to Arthur Kelly, my former attorney. I had called Arthur Kelly in late April of 2026 regarding the various Greek and Italian mafia rackets he had involved himself in his wrongful and highly unethical and potentially criminal treatment actions as my attorney sometime in 2015. Or excuse me, sometime, I can't get the year right. It was probably around 2017. It's when I was wrongfully charged with assault and battery over the age of 60 by the Newton Police and the Middlesex County DA's office. The Middlesex County DA's office and the Newton Police are in the habit of wrongfully charging people with crimes on behalf of the Italian mafia. Gian Mooney Sweeney is an example of this. I am an example of this. Gian Mooney Sweeney was charged by petty theft on behalf of corrupt police officers operating on behalf of the Italian mafia that operates out of the Nonantum section of Newton. And she was prosecuted by the Middlesex County DA's office, Marion Ryan's office, wrongfully. There's now an open question as to whether or not Marion Ryan is in the employ of the Italian mafia that operates out of the Nonantum section of Newton, Massachusetts. Hello, DA Ryan. You're a fucking idiot. Marion Ryan, when you, side note, Marion Ryan, you're probably a narcissist. When you were talking to me at my desk at Waltham District Court sometime in 2003 or 2004, you were yelling so loudly and you were angry about it, allegedly, about an elder abuse case. You spit on my face. You were foaming at the mouth while you were yelling. You have a self-control problem, Marion Ryan. I've never spit on somebody's face while yelling about a third party. Anyways, let's get back to the present. So the Newton police were here on May 5th, 2026. They held me. One officer leaned up against this car right here by the rearview mirror. The other officer leaned against this right over the wheel here. They were questioning me about phone calls I had made to Arthur Kelly. I had called Arthur Kelly in late April of 2026 regarding the small part he played in various Italian mafia rackets by his wrongful and potentially criminal and highly unethical performance as my attorney when I was wrongfully charged with assault and battery over the age of 60 sometime in 2017. Now, I had called Arthur Kelly in late April, but after the Newton police left, I discovered on my phone log, my Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus, that on the log it represented that there were phone calls made to Arthur Kelly's number on May 4th. The timestamp was sometime around 10:58. I don't know whether it was AM or PM. I didn't make those phone calls. Someone's been hacking into this phone quite a bit. So, how those got on the phone, those calls got on the phone log, I do not know, but it's definitely as a result of the hacking by the Greek mob or the Italian mafia, probably by the hacker who lives at 1 Fairview Street. I can get into how I know he's the hacker later. There's circumstantial evidence thereof. Not the least of which is on numerous occasions over the last 20 years, I've seen short, young Asian women walking slowly and reluctantly towards that door. There's a clear inference from these facts, the amount of time they spend at the residence, his age, the fact that he rarely, if ever, leaves, that he works from home, and that those young Asian women are prostitutes provided to him for free by the Greek mob. Yeah, there's these young Asian women who are shorter than average for women, who over the last 20 years, more than 20 years, I've seen them coming and going from 1 Fairview Street, and they're always walking very slowly towards the door as if they are reluctant towards the stairs. So there's an inference from these facts that, given he's single and in his 60s or 70s, that they're not there for computer lessons, given that they only spend about an hour and a half or 2 hours there. They're prostitutes operating out of Newtonville Massage Therapy, and said prostitutes are prostitution is a form of payment from the Greek mob, who runs a protection racket on Newtonville Massage Therapy. This is basic criminal law. This is basic training and experience of any low-level assistant district attorney in New York City or in Massachusetts. Anyways, let's get back to May 5th, 2026. So, there's been hacking into the phone. The Newton police held me here and asked me about questions about my phone calls to Arthur Kelly. I told them about the theft of inheritance scam, how much money was missing, and some other things. I did not mention the espionage and treason aspect of the Italian mafia rackets. I just said other criminal matters, because I figured because these guys were local police, and because they're corrupt and working for the Italian mafia, who's, in my opinion, betrayed the United States of America, I didn't need to tell them that. I just said I advised Arthur Kelly of other criminal matters he might be involved in, and I was giving him advice with which he could help himself if he's ever charged with a crime, and that he did something highly unethical. Specifically, he had a third party in the room when he did a plea conference with me. That third party was my mother, and he threatened me with the Billerica House of Correction if anything like this ever happened again on behalf of my mother. That's highly unethical. That's an extortionist threat issued by an attorney who is ethically obligated to act in my best interests, which he did not in that case. He didn't raise a self-defense strategy with me, which would have worked. And as a result, I was falsely labeled mentally ill as a result of that plea agreement. It was definitely part of a Greek and Italian mafia racket that Arthur Kelly was acting as an agent of the Greek and Italian mafia, not my attorney. That's extremely bad. That's grounds for disbarment. And I've advised Arthur Kelly of this in a number of messages. It's also grounds for felony charges in the state or federal court. So I advised Arthur Kelly of this, and apparently the Newton police were unhappy with that, and that's why they were here on May 5th of 2026. So the Newton police were here on a pretext They didn't tell me what about my phone calls to Arthur Kelly were objectionable, and this was an act of extortion by the Newton police on behalf of the Italian mafia operating out of the Nonantum section of Newton. And the police officers were here. I didn't get the two police officers who leaned against the car. I didn't get their names. But Sergeant McLean showed up later and talked to me. And then two paramedics showed up here for no apparent reason, because I was not demonstrating any indicia of mental illness or danger to self or others, and yet they still had two paramedics come to the address, one of whom made a veiled death threat. She's short, she's Asian, and she said, "Are you suicidal?" for no apparent reason, even though I showed no indications of suicidality or danger to self or others. And it was not, the question, "Are you suicidal?" was not asked as part of a series of questions about mental status. She didn't ask me how I felt. There's a series of questions that I've done this in EMT training, and EMT basic training, and paramedics get more training about this. There's a series of questions that a paramedic asks to assess your mental status. They don't start with, "Are you suicidal?" And they don't ask only the question, "Are you suicidal?" And that was the only question she asked. Thus, that question was a veiled death threat, not a legitimate inquiry by a healthcare professional. Got it? So, this was extortion by some young Asian paramedic who is working on behalf of a foreign power. It's inferable because Dad was in the CIA and I was recruited by the CIA. We can get into the facts of why that's credible later in another recording. I was recruited via LinkedIn by the CIA, and it's credible that I say that because of other people who worked in the Middlesex County DA's office were recruited and worked for the State Department, and it's a similar background, right? Anybody who works for the State Department, they could also work for the CIA, and the State Department does intelligence work, right? So it's the same basic background for a CIA officer who's going to work under official cover and a consular officer who works for the State Department. Same basic background. And two people who worked at the Middlesex County DA's office, one of whom had previously worked in the same unit I worked in, worked for the State Department. Their names are Lincoln Jalalian and Patrick Canal. So when I say I was recruited by the CIA via LinkedIn, it is absolutely credible. It is 100% credible. I am telling the truth. And it is proven by the fact of who Lincoln Jalalian and Patrick Canal, both assistant district attorneys in Middlesex County, who they ended up working for after the DA's office. Now, they ended up working for the State Department, not the CIA. But the CIA and the State Department, in certain respects, they work very closely together, and the jobs are almost, in some respects, some of the jobs are interchangeable. So when I say I was recruited by the CIA in 2009, it is absolutely credible. So when an Asian female and some corrupt police who are obviously working for the Italian mafia that operates out of the Nonantum section of Newton, come here on a demonstrably false pretext to threaten me and extort me regarding both Italian mafia rackets that involve theft of inheritance and homicide, but they also involve the murder of a CIA counterintelligence officer, that's Dad, and the extortion and threats and poisoning made against somebody who was credibly recruited by the CIA. That means that the Newton police were here on May 5th, 2026, along with that paramedic, to extort and blackmail me, or extort me, and threaten me physically with their service weapons in furtherance of espionage and treason. The Newton police were here on May 5th, 2026, in furtherance of espionage and treason committed by the Greek mob and the Italian mafia operating out of the Nonantum section of Newton. And the employment history of Thomas Anthony Dorsey and Edward C. Dorsey proves this beyond any doubt. So, there was more to the extortionist threats of, there was another purpose for the very corrupt members of the Newton police being here at 10 Ferry Street on the afternoon of May 5th, 2026. Conspiracy to commit murder and or conspiracy to commit a non-fatal poisoning. I don't know which it was. It was either A, conspiracy to commit murder with me as the victim, or conspiracy to commit a non-fatal poisoning to make me appear mentally ill. to falsely make me appear mentally ill. Because the Newton police had me with my back turned to the front door of 10 Fairview Street. I was facing them at that, they were leaning up against that car in that position, hasn't moved since. And you can see from the position here where I was standing about here. I couldn't see the front door. As the Newton police left, so I couldn't see the front door for about 45 minutes. Please excuse all the furniture on the porch. I had to try and start a business regarding used furniture as a result of all the harassment by the mafia, and it didn't work. As I was re-entering the front door, I looked right there, and I saw Richard Bebo of 4 Fairview Street aggressively approaching a Newton police officer, the short, fat one who was here. And